So you are up to date with all the details ahead of today's meeting. Excellent racing coming your way today. Pat and I now just going to have a little bit of a chat about what's to come, Pat. You've highlighted some of the horses to look forward to, etc. We had a pretty good start to the season, but everything goes up a notch today.
It certainly does. Great to be joining you, Rishi, and it's good to preview this first big meeting for the carnival. It is the Dubai Creek Mile. We saw a great winner last year in Al Nafoot, and it was a little disappointing that we didn't get to see him go on with it in the season, getting sore after that start. But look, it has been always a good little guidance race to what's to come for some of the mile features. A lot of horses kicking off their campaigns.
Yeah. Have you summered well?
Yeah, look, I have. I summed a bit too well, I think, to be perfectly honest with you. I spent a bit too much time away. Look, it was nice and cold and wet at home in Melbourne, so I tried to spend as much time as I could, just sort of backpacking around Asia and enjoying in the more humid parts of the world. But it's good to be back in business.
Well, it's certainly not cold and it's certainly not wet now. And we can look ahead to our first race of the night. And what a good race it is. The Baniyas for the Purebred Arabian, sponsored by Nakheel. And the last two winners of the race are lining up. Najm Al Wathba, who won the race last year, and AF Alajaj, who won the race back in 2022. We'll look back at last year's race if we can. Pat, because that's key when you consider some of the leading contenders here. And I mentioned Najm Al Wathba, who sadly we didn't see again after this win 12 months ago.
Yeah, he's a pretty exciting horse, Najm Al Wathba. We've seen him do some great things so far in his career. I guess the big factor as to what we're going to experience tonight is that question of where is he at? Because at the end of the day, that 12 months off, he has won this race before and that form is good. But when it comes to, I guess, the race itself and where this horse is at, I mean, we're not going to know until he steps out on the track tonight. And the fact he's a purebred Arabian makes it even harder as well, because their form can be so skewed. But he's got to be given a hope, considering he's done it before.
Yeah, we've got some other horses that come into the race off the back of the run a couple of weeks ago. I like Alajaj primarily because he's got course and distance form, decent draw, representing a combination that generally go well. Although last season was a bit disappointing overall, I'll give him another chance. But anything from the last run here on the opening night?
Well, Canal de Fosse was impressive, wasn't he? Yeah. Coming from well back in the field there under Sandro Paiva to go on and get the win. He was a long way off them, but looked really well coming out into the parade ring, and he was able to go on with it and get there in a nick of time. I've stuck with Unlimited here in this race for Richie Mullen and Dr. Jabba Batara, another stable who've had a pretty slow start to the season, you'd have to say. But look, he's drawn wide. He's got speed to burn. I'd like to see him leading 200 metres into the race, especially with a 12-horse field in this event. So if he's able to press forward and control the race from the front, I'd say he'd be giving a side.
Well, I'm hoping that Alajaj does that from stall one. That's my assessment. Similar. Press on, repeat the performance from 2 years ago, and hopefully that's the sort of form that he is in. That's our opening race, the Baniyas. Let's move on and talk about the second race, which is for horses that we don't really know that much about. This is the Como Residence Maiden. It's over 1,200 metres on the dirt. Just a handful of runners, but lots of good pedigrees, lots of horses that cost a fair bit of money. Dark Saffron has been in action, finished second at Jebel Ali earlier this month. What sort of level are we talking about?
Well, it's interesting. His trial was good at Jebel Ali. We expected him to come out and run well there at the track, and he did that. He was impressive behind the local runner in Nahash. Look, I think the Bin Hamish stable were pretty adamant that Sir Harmony was probably the pick of their two when it came to their youngsters who stepped out that day. We get to see Dark Saffron here at Meydan, which is going to be a big factor. But look, the big question mark is around like a few of these others, because as you said, we haven't really seen a lot of these runners out on the track yet, and that could unearth something that we're not expecting. I mean, the horse in the Bernardo Pinheiro is riding for Sheikh Hamdan in Vivido. He was impressive in what we've seen so far. I mean, Undefeated's been good. Bupat Seema's record with youngsters in the recent seasons hasn't been as flash as some of the other stables, but I mean, he's put the writing on the wall at Meydan trials that he's there to hopefully kick off well. I mean, Mel Hoof's been good at the trials as well. Michael Costa has had a great start to the season.
No doubt.
I've lent towards one, though, from a stable that has been proven with babies in the last couple of seasons, and that is the stable of Musab Al Mahiri. Yeah. We saw a Awab come out the other last start and go well. I don't know if African Candy's up to the level of Awab. We saw him come out and win, quite dominantly. But I think African Candy, hopefully he's forward enough for this. But yeah, I'll be interested to see if this stable can pick up another debut winner in the youngsters race. How did you see it?
Well, again, I've gone for a stable that are in form in Michael Costa's stable, and I love the pedigree of Malhoof. He's by Authentic, the Kentucky Derby winner out of any given Saturday mare. There's a lot of excitement about the pedigree. Cost a fair bit of money, but then again, when you look through all the pedigrees of all the horses in this race, we were talking about all horses that have the right pedigree for this surface, and they all come with decent family on the dam side as well. So it's a bit of a guess. Like you, I can see why you've gone for Musaba's horse, African Candy, because there's that run from Awab a couple of weeks ago. I'm gone for the Michael Costa horse because of the pedigree.
I think we've taken the same premise and sort of approach to this race in the fact that there is a lot of quality through the race. Hopefully all these horses will go on to win a maiden race, but I mean, you've just got to stick with the yards who have done it before, and most recently we've seen the results come from their stables that they can get these horses to fire on debut.
All right, let's move on and talk about race 3, which is the Palm Jebel Ali. This is a race that, unlike our previous race that we're discussing about unexposed horses, we know a lot more about the majority of these horses lining up. A couple of non-runners, obviously, to bear in mind. And the interesting thing about this is that I don't see many horses that are unexposed, many horses that have the ability to improve. Michael Costa's Tawala would be an obvious one that I think does have that ability to improve. We can have a look at Tawala back in June on the all-weather at Kempton.
Yeah, he's a horse that I'm sure the stable will be very happy with the fact that he's drawn a decent gate here for this upcoming assignment. Look, I don't know how you've probably got a better guide on this than I do. How does Kempton Park and I guess those all-weather surfaces, do they translate to the dirt as well as you'd hope here? That's the big question.
Well, anybody watching the Breeders' Cup will know that City of Troy went to Southall to have a little spin round. Let me tell you, there is not one racecourse in the UK that will prepare horses for a dirt surface, whether it's in America or in Dubai. Unfortunately, it's just not good enough as a test for dirt. What this horse did show, though, is speed. So even though moving to the dirt is a question mark, one thing that you know out here at Meydan more than anywhere else is that speed on the front end is important. And he does have that, whereas pedigree and previous form suggests the dirt is a big question.
Yeah, he's an exciting horse, Tawala, in the fact that, you know, he's coming from that stable that have had so much success already with those horses making their way from the UK. I think if Tawala was coming with a trainer who was bringing this horse over to race and he'd had this form lining up so far, I'd be a little bit more concerned. But I guess this horse has been on the ground for a while. The stable's been able to sort of get him working on the dirt at home at Jebel Ali, get him race fit for this. And although it's not Meydan, but giving him a chance to acclimatise to this surface as much as possible. So, look, he's an exciting horse. I've lent to him on top as well, Tawala. Okay. I'm hopefully we can see him translate that and bring that to the fore. There was a lot of horses here, Rishi, that I could probably count out. I mean, look, it might be a controversial opinion and it's no knock on the stable. They've had great success, but I can't give Fauzi Nasser's horses any respect at the moment. From what they delivered at Jebel Ali last week, it shows that the horses in the yard might be quite underdone. And even though El Introvertido and Condor Pasa represent horses that could win this race, I mean, I'm going to have to start seeing some results from them before I could tip them with any confidence. They look like a stable that might be a little bit on the back foot at the moment.
Again, similar sentiments, and if I hadn't been scarred by supporting City of Troy in the Breeders' Cup Classic, I'd probably have gone for Tawala as well, but I need to see them do it on the dirt.
Fair enough.
Before I can go for them. As a consequence, you know that Tolmant comes into the race off the back of a very good run, likely to go forward, as is his run style. So it was a case of elimination. I ended up with Tolmant as opposed to being really keen on Tolmount. Let's move on and talk about race 4, which is potentially a cracking race. It's the Zayed al-Rashid, sponsored by Nakheel. Some really exciting horses potentially here. Killer Collect, last seen winning the Al-Basta Kia, up against a couple of really interesting horses from Michael Costa's stable, Garcid and Gabul. We'll have a look at Gabul first of all, winning here a couple of weeks ago. Is he the pick of the two Michael Costa runners?
I believe he is. It's a tough one because you've got Garcid on the other stable, who's got the main number 1 rider in Ben Cohen booked to ride, and was also very dominant, you know, in his victory last start at Jebel Ali. It leads me to question whether or not Garcett's going to be able to translate that form across to Meydan. He has run here before, but that was as a 2-year-old. What Garbul was able to do physically, even though it was a much inferior field to what Gassett faced at Jebel Ali, he was able to come out and from a times perspective, go about 1.5 seconds outside the track record. Now, it doesn't matter who you beat, it's how you do it and the times that you represent. And I think he represents a horse that's going to come on plenty from that, and the fact that he's got that proven form here, I'm really surprised to see the black cap on him here today. I thought he was the first string horse going into this race straight out, but look, there's no knock in Ray Dawson jumping on board. He's had great results so far this season, and I think both horses represent main chances. I've got them as first and second picks, but I'm siding with Garbul. I think he's a special horse. He's going to go on with it.
Well, funny enough, I think Killer Collect could be a very exciting horse this season. Ended up winning the Albasta Key. Had previously run really well when didn't have the best trip racing out wide on his start before this. But again here, he beats Autobahn. Now, Autobahn went on to run a fine second in the UA Derby. The winner of the UA Derby turned out to be a pretty good horse in Forever Young. He was already a good horse going into the UA Derby. Of course, Forever Young ran well in the Kentucky Derby and the Breeders' Cup Classic. So we're talking about high-class form. My question mark about Killer Collect, and you could probably tell me a little bit more, there will not be a more handsome horse parading tonight. He's a big, imposing brute of a horse.
Yeah.
Will he be ready, do you think?
Well, that's the big question. Is Bupak going to have this horse ready to fire first up? And in every right, you'd probably say, like, he's not going to have him fully screwed down for this. I mean, there's bigger targets on the card for a horse like Killer Collect, and targets also over further than a mile. You know, 1,900 metres is probably going to be the distance where we're really going to start seeing him fire. You come back, though, Rishi, to that fact where you said natural ability is there. He's a horse that his raw ability will take him a long way in this race. It's just whether or not the conditions are going to suit him, as well as a few of these who are probably, with that run under their belt now already, a little bit sharper and a little bit more fit. I'm not knocking him. I think he's a great horse and he's going to win plenty of races this season, but I just think this is early in the season here at Meydan. This is an opportunity for these horses to, I guess, who are working through the grades to really fire, ones that have sort of kicked off their campaigns earlier. So I'm siding with Garbul, but I think it's a really nice race, and I can totally understand you going with Killer Collect.
Also, I'm a very shallow human being, and I'm all about looks. And Killer Collect has definitely got killer looks, so he's my selection in race 4. Let's move on and talk about the feature race of the night for the thoroughbreds. It's Dubai Creek Mile, sponsored by Nakheel, and it sees the return to action of one of the most intriguing horses around. It is Walk of Stars, who ran such a fine race in the Godolphin Mile. But there are question marks for him to answer. Primarily, do you believe that Walk of Stars wants to win?
Yeah, it's a hard one, isn't it? And I think there's for a horse like Walk of Stars, who finds it so hard to hit the line first, sometimes when you see these horses like we saw with Walk of Stars in the Godolphin Mile, he's had multiple runs to his name, he's rock hard fit, and regardless of the fact that he probably doesn't want to hit the line as hard as he hopes, the fitness takes him a long way into the race. And I mean, that was shown and very evident here, where like 2 rivers over and a few of these horses really challenged, and he looked beat at the 200 metre mark, but he still found his way to the line enough to actually get back over into second position. So look, I'm hoping to see him run well. I can understand why he's the short price international market favourite going off the form that we've seen, but I think there's a lot more to the race, and I'm looking at our selections. We actually, our madness actually aligned here as to like why we've got, because we've both gone with a sprinter.
Yeah, we've both gone for Al Tariq, and that's because I think we both agree that while Walk of Stars is the most talented horse lining up, might be the most talented horse racing this evening, but there's that little bit of a doubt that will he go through with the effort. But maybe a little bit unfair to him, because he does have some very good form, but he hasn't won a race for some time. And Al Tariq comes in off the back of, well, in fairness, a while ago he won the Jebel Ali Classic, and it was a very smart performance. But he's got speed, and I think I like the angle of speedy horses stepping up in trip on the dirt.
100%. And I think it's a some people would look at this as a really bold move for a start to put him in, but I mean, he's a horse that has got plenty of speed to burn, as you mentioned, and he's a horse that has fired fit in the past. He's not a stranger to the mile as well. We've seen him run over this distance before in past seasons. I mean, he was only kept to Jebel Ali last. He's a grind away horse. I mean, if he can come up into this as a horse that he's over a shorter trip, but I mean, if he can get himself into the race in an early stage, I mean, he's going to be a hard horse to pass. That's the thing that's going to be a big factor for him. And I think it's a bold move by Doug Watson to send the horse here, but I can totally see why they've done it, because it's not a very strong Dubai Creek mile. All you've got to do is make sure that, and hopefully that Walk of Stars doesn't want to win the race. And I mean, if he is up to his normal tricks, I mean, it's up for the taking, and El Tariq fits the bill.
All right. Let's move on and talk about the penultimate race, which is the Thunder Snow Handicap, sponsored by Nikhil, named after the only dual winner of the Dubai World Cup. What a magnificent horse Thunder Snow was for Saeed bin Suroor. There's a list of the runners and riders. And of course, there's a bit of form that is fairly recent that we can refer to, and involves the two horses, La Reche and Lion's Mane, from a couple of weeks ago. Lion's Mane finishes ahead of La Reche. How key do you think this form is in determining the winner of this race?
Lion's Mane is not a horse that's strung multiple victories up together. That's the thing. His wins are sort of few and far between. He's a tough horse. I mean, he comes up into a tougher event here, and he's got a lightweight as well, which is going to aid him. So I think that will take him a long way in the race. I can understand, as you mentioned, with La Reche obviously coming through that form line too, but it's a different kettle of fish to what they were facing 2 weeks ago. I mean, it's the meetings last week, although we're racing at the same venue, are chalk and cheese. We're really starting to see some proper horses start their campaigns, and there's a few that might be obviously early in their campaigns, and we won't see the best of them until for a few starts. But I don't think Lion's Mane and La Reche probably got a proper test last time out. I mean, this is a different sort of race, and I mean, some horses coming in here off higher ratings. It's just a big question as how forward they're going to be early in this campaign. So it's a tough race to decipher. I went with Wild Crusade here. Again, I hear what you're saying about the fact that, Kempton Park form can't be sort of, used as a way to sort of, I guess, line up and prepare a horse for the dirt here. But I'd like to think that the Dabawi breeding and the fact that Julio Olajuara is training this horse here on the course here at Meydan, he will be familiar to this surface. He's worked on it and prepared on this surface. I like the fact that he's run second to Warren Point. I know he's more of a grass horse, but I mean, it's he's a horse that's proven here at Meydan, and he's a pretty classy horse in his own right for Charlie Appleby. So I'm hoping that some of that listed form, even though it is at Kempton Park, will be enough to see him go well here, as long as he's forward enough. And I think the breeding says that hopefully he'll handle the dirt a little bit better.
All right. Well, I concentrated on the Michael Costa pair, and it ended up going for Shamik. Now he's got a tougher draw in 8, and he raced out wide last time out, and this will be his second start after a long break. He came back obviously a couple of weeks ago, but I thought there was enough encouragement. Hopefully, if he's in a better place, an even better performance this evening. And then we move on to our final race of the night. It is a maiden. It's the Dubai Islands, just a small field. Again, lots of really good pedigrees, lots of good dirt pedigrees, with perhaps the exception of Parisian Beauty. Early days for her sire Kamiko, but it appears that if he's going to be quite a useful sire on turf horses, at least, or on synthetics as well. So again, it was a case of process of elimination. I've gone for one of the Pupat Simar runners, and I've gone for the one that Tiger Shea has chosen to ride, Flama Sunshine, who has run in a trial. So that was my entire thinking.
Yeah, look, it's a hard race if you're looking at it sort of to try and sort of separate them. I purely went off what we were able to see at the trials. I mean, I've got to give an honourable mention to Arigato Gozaimasu. He went very good. That's going to be an interesting one at the race call, isn't it? Especially last race of the day. But he was a good performer at the Jebel Ali trials. I'm very confident though here on one. I really liked what we saw from Ruby Hamilton at the trials at Jebel Ali. I know it wasn't at Meydan, but from a fitness perspective, I mean, it's never been the strongest. Sort of, I guess, class of horse. The 2-year-old fillies races here in Meydan, especially over recent seasons. I mean, you've just got to have one that's got half ability, and there's plenty of prize money to pick up over the season. And I do believe Ruby Hamilton's got a fair bit of ability.
Okay.
Doug Watson's got this horse absolutely flying and ready to go, and I think that they've found a really nice race to kick her off with. And look, I think there's good confidence from the camp as well that there's some nice targets ahead for her. So hopefully this is a nice kicking off point for Ruby Hamilton. I've made it my special for the night. So hopefully, if we haven't tipped a winner all night, we might be able to get one in the last race.
I always enjoy it when Doug Watson finds a nice filly. I'll go back to the days of Polar River. And there have been others since that when he gets a good filly, the way he campaigns them up. So hopefully Ruby Hamilton will be such. But again, it's a race where we're playing a little bit of the guessing game. Let's confirm the selections for Pat first of all. You've heard the workings. Now these are the results. Here we go.
We'll see how we go. Hopefully we can bet a one out of 7 from last meeting. 12 Unleashed. Hopefully we see him lead all the way from that wide draw. We need to see him jump though. African Candy, another one stepping out for Masab Al Maheri. Tawala from a good gate. Hopefully we see him run well also. Michael Costa also saddles up Garboul again. Hopefully we see him run well after that very impressive and electric debut run. Al Tariq in the feature, the Dubai Creek Mile. Number 1, Wild Crusade, the top weight there in the 6th. And Ruby Hamilton, my special, in the 7th.
Special. Okay, and here's what I've gone for. The former winner of the Baniyas, Alajaj, in race 1, number 1. Race 2, I've gone for Malhoof, number 5. Race 3, Tollmount, to follow up his win a couple of weeks ago, number 8. Race 4, number 1, the good-looking Killer Collect for me. Race 5, number 2, Altariq, agreeing with Pat. Race 6, I've gone for Shamik for the Michael Costa stable, number 7. And in the final race, 7, I've gone for number 2, Flama Sunshine.
What's your special?
My special would be Killer Collect.
Okay, there we
because
go.
I just think the Forever Young form is so good. I'm hoping he's going to develop into something special this season.
Yep.
And I know that he's coming back in trip, but I'm hoping that his class suggests we'll see an exciting horse.
Michael Costa's either going to like us or hate us, Rishi, because we've tipped 4 of his runners. You've tipped 2 and I've tipped 2, and we've tipped him in 4 separate races. So he's either going to like that or not like that.
Shall I tell you what my betting is on that? I'm pretty certain he's going to hate us.
Yeah.
Most people do. Pat, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a fantastic evening. We are going to get ourselves ready for all the action, and in the meantime, you can enjoy the highlights from our opening night of the season a couple of weeks ago.
Beautiful.